Hi everyone, I wanted to give you guys a quick tutorial on comparative analysis. This is going to use a method called the D.I.E method, and it's a method of analysis. And we're going to use this method comparing two subjects, so just like in your essays. First of all, D.I.E, it is we're going to interactively sort out description, that's the D, interpretation, that's the I, and evaluation of a particular experience, or in this case, two subjects. So D.I.E is an acronym, D.I.E, and it just basically describes the method. First we do description, then we interpret, and then we evaluate that interpretation. So here goes. So description, this first stage of analysis, the goal is to describe the experience or the subjects by sticking as closely as possible to the phenomenon that we're observing. So we're going to be looking at two paintings or two murals. So the first stage will be describing what we're looking at and just sticking to description, right? Not interpreting and not evaluating in any way. So it's very objective. We'll try to be as objective as possible using purely descriptive techniques. We've learned about those descriptive techniques all throughout the term, right? So that includes using imagery, using all five of the senses, not just one or another, using similes and metaphors, using vivid verbs and adjectives and adverbs, and using nouns that are descriptive as well. So we have a lot of tools to describe. We're going to use these descriptive techniques without adding anything about what we're seeing might mean. So if we start talking about what it means, that would be interpretation, and that is the next step. So we're not going to do that. The interpretation stage, here the goal is to concentrate on what the events we're witnessing or the subjects we're witnessing might mean to those people involved. So we're going to make assumptions. It's going to be based on deductive reasoning. And this part of the exercise focuses on the agency. Rather than the behavior we're witnessing, we're going to think about the motivation or the agency. And on the cultural environment in which their agency takes place, so that whoever we're writing this for can comprehend it. After interpretation is evaluation, and in this last stage, you get to pass all the judgments you want. We are going to establish some assumed standard of comparison, and we're going to involve some of our own opinions and explanations for what has happened. So it's not going to just be like, I hate this or I love this, but we want to explain what's been happening, like what we're seeing, and what it means. So it's almost like the conclusive stage. It would be what your conclusion of your essay would be. In other words, this part of the exercise focuses on the agency of you as a researcher. So whereas description is purely observatory, just you describing, and interpretation is focusing on the agency of the people involved. So we're going to be looking at murals. We'll think about the painter and the people in the painting. Excuse me. And this evaluation stage will be focusing on the agency of you as a researcher. All right, so let's move on. Just like in the essays, we're going to focus on a particular aspect of identity as we do this comparative analysis. So this aspect that I've chosen is going to be community identity. So as we look at the murals, I want you guys to think about what values or belief systems you see represented in the following two murals. So here's the first one. It's by Diego Rivera. You may have heard of him. He was a Mexican painter. He's famous for his murals. He's painted murals all over the world. There are many in the United States, many in South America, and many in Mexico. This particular one is at some sort of Capitol building, a municipal building. And just take a look at it, pause the video, and do your best to describe. Remember to use all your senses. Notice how you can describe what's going on in the different sections of the painting. So there's a lot going on. You could look at just this top part here, and then you could move on to the middle part, and then to the bottom part. There's also some sort of triptych going on vertically or horizontally. So there's this section here with the dome, the section here with that dome, and likewise here. So notice how if you've ever been into a city hall or a municipal building, there are stairs that come up the bottom from the foyer, and then stairs that go either off to the right or to the left, or maybe you've seen this in movies, but it's a grand building. And as you can see, there are different sections going on. So go ahead and pause the video and do your best to describe. Okay, so hopefully you were able to describe in some way. It can be a quick description, maybe 5 minutes or so. Hopefully you use your senses. Now you get to interpret. So think about what you see culturally here, right? Notice the patterns. Something that we know about analysis is that you pick up on patterns. So think about what you know already. For instance, here we see some sort of religious representative, right? And you probably know that Mexico is oriented in the Catholic faith. So you can use that deductive reasoning and interpret in some way about the behaviors happening in the painting, in the mural. Likewise, you can kind of tell what era some of these people are from. Likewise, you can look at some of the agriculture that's being represented here, and you can interpret meaning from those things. There's lots to interpret. We haven't even gotten down here yet. So go ahead and pause your video and maybe write some interpretation. Okay, hopefully that went well. Lastly, we get to evaluate. So we get to make judgments based on your description and interpretation. So that's totally up to you. You have the agency as the researcher. You've observed what's happening in the mural. You've interpreted what's happening objectively, right? And now you get to evaluate what's happening. And remember, evaluation isn't just what's good and bad, but also it makes assumptions. And remember that you want to evaluate it based on community identity. So what do you think this community is trying to express, and how do you evaluate or judge that expression? So go ahead and write for about 5 minutes about that. Here's kind of, it's kind of a crummy close-up. Not such great quality, but you can take a look at it if you like. All right, now we're going to move on to the next mural. So go ahead and do the same thing here. First, pause the video and describe as much as you can. Then you want to pause the video and interpret as much as you can based on that description. And then after you interpret, go ahead and pause the video and evaluate. Okay, so hopefully that went well, and you can start comparing your description, interpretation, and evaluation side by side between the two murals. Before we talk about that, let's take a look at some background and some context. So Diego Rivera's mural is at the National Palace. It is in the seat of the federal executive in Mexico. It's located on Mexico City's main square. And the site has been a palace for the ruling class of Mexico since the Aztec Empire, and much of the current palace's building materials are from the original one that belonged to, does anyone know how to say this? Moctezuma II? And here's Goldman's explanation of Rivera's agenda as a muralist, and this may help you give you some context. Okay, and I'll just give you a little bit of context for this one. This mural is very different than Rivera's. It's actually from New England in the United States. It's supposed to represent the Light Festival that's been happening in New England in the US for just a few years. So it's a festival that was established just a few years ago, though it has ancient roots in other cultures across the world. A few artists have taken the initiative and established this festival, and there's usually a light parade one night of the year. And, as you can see, there are probably a parade of people here in the foreground, but then there are lanterns here between the trees, which I assume are being carried by people. That would be my evaluation. So, this particular mural comes from Jamaica Plain in upstate New York. There was no muralist cited when I got this off the Jamaica Plain municipal website. So there's your context for that. Now you want to look at your two D.I.Es side by side and make lists of what they have in common, right? And what about cultural identity do you see that the two murals have in common? And that'll be a really great starting place for writing an essay for it. So as you, let's see, go back here, sorry. There we go. As you go through this, whoops, I just can't win. As you go through this D.I.E, or Description, Interpretation, and Evaluation, for your own two subjects, just keep in mind this method of analysis. Sometimes it can help you come up and generate lots of really good writing that helps you compare the two. So good luck with that, and happy writing. Thank you.